It is my pleasure to talk with Paula Panchenko, the director of Tandem Press. Paula, thank you for speaking with me today.
Thank you very much.
And our friend Johannes Wallman, who is the John and Carolyn Peterson Chair of Jazz Studies at the Mead, Witter, UW-Madison School of Music. And if I say that 3 times, the interview time will be up. Johannes, welcome.
Hey, you got it. Thank you. Welcome.
I'd like to start with you, Paula. You have done such wonderful things with Tandem Press. It primarily does visual art, but you also do these jazz concerts. And I would like to start out by just asking you to give the viewers an idea of what Tandem Press is. And I realize it's a big tent, but let us inside the tent.
Well, Tandem Press is 100% a part of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and we're affiliated to the Department of Art in the School of Education. Mm-hmm. We were founded by the late Bill Wiggy, who had an idea about bringing internationally renowned artists to Madison, allowing students to work with these artists. He decided on creating a press and had the students working as assistants to the printers with the visual artists. And his feeling essentially was that the teachers at the university can teach the students, but for the students to be really creative, they need to experience the creative process. And that was what he brought to the university 34 years ago, and that's what we continue today.
And when we hear the word printing, we tend to think of typeset, maybe making a newspaper or something like that. That is not precisely what you do. What is Tandem Press's printing? How do you make the art?
Well, printing is one of the oldest techniques that there actually is. So we engage in etching, lithography, woodblock printing, silk screen, and of course, being in the digital age, we do digital work too. And so to somebody who doesn't know what a print is, many of us as children may have learned how to use a potato print, where you cut a design in it, you paint on the raised parts, and then you make a stamp on a sheet of paper. And a print really is exactly that, except the techniques are much more sophisticated and the results are incredible.
They are indeed, and it's always fun when we are not in a pandemic to be able to go in and see the art that you are creating and that you are displaying. And I want to thank you for that. And also, you have done this really creative thing by working with Professor Wallman of bringing in the performing arts as well as the visual arts, which I think is just a beautiful thing. And you have done that through the Tandem Press Jazz Concert Series. And I'd like to get from both of you, and I'll just start with you, Paula, how did this idea come to be that, we're a printing plant, but we do visual art, but we're going to do these jazz concerts? I think it's wonderful.
Well, my career started running an art center, and I think that probably had something to do with it. But then I focused a lot on the visual arts throughout my career. But Tandem Press is off the campus, and we wanted to have a broader audience to come and visit us, see what we were doing, but expand what we were doing as well. Also, we employ students in what we do, and we thought that this would be a great opportunity for music students to get involved as well. So I went to see Susan Cook, who's the director of the School of Music at the UW, and she immediately said, after I said about 3 sentences, "There is one person you have to meet, and this can be done." And that is Professor Johannes Wallman. He is amazing. Mm. And we sat down with Johannes, and he said, absolutely. And the program that I think that we're doing in this pandemic is unbelievable in comparison with what we used to do, thanks to you at Audio for the Arts and Dave and Audrey and Johannes, of course, and he will speak about this, which is an unbelievable experiment in my experience.
Yeah, the two of you are just a wonderful creative force in all of this. And so, Johannes, you have been able to create this jazz series co-created with Paula. Now we're in a pandemic, and so we've had to get triply creative. Can you speak to what you have done to make this creative and safe?
With our ensembles, we are unable to do concerts for audiences right now during the pandemic. The problem for every performing musician right now is we love to keep making music, and we just can't do it safely in the same room, in the same spaces, not just with an audience, but also with each other. Especially when it comes to wind instruments, saxophones, trumpets, trombones, singers. We just can't safely be around each other right now, one of the terrible effects of this pandemic. So, and yet we hunger for collaborative music making. That's at the essence of what we do, is we make music to connect with people. So the way we've been teaching our jazz ensembles all semester is that we, since September, is that we've been switching to a format we call recording ensembles. We meet online and every week, and we assign students to projects and give them some sort of starting prompt, a recorded guide track, which can be anything from a metronome click to a fully recorded multi-piece composition with computer simulations for the different instruments. And then the students start filling in the acoustic parts of their composition. And they record one instrument at a time. We might start with the drummer, and the drummer will record their track and then send that to the bass player, and maybe then they record their track next. We add piano, we add saxophone, and so on. And the piece gets layered from the ground up until we have an entire ensemble in there. And, there's a downside to that, which is that we can't have that same in-the-moment spontaneity. It takes more planning, but it still allows for some musical conversation. And working with Tandem and Audio for the Arts gave us the opportunity to think broader and think how we still COVID safely could expand this. And working with a professional recording studio gave us the opportunity to use ISO booths. And by having these ISO booths, they're designed to isolate sound, but of course they also isolate air. So we could put a saxophone in that ISO booth and have them take off their mask and play and be next door to other musicians and play with them at the same time using headphones. What you're going to see in these videos that we recorded is a hybrid format. We typically recorded the original part of most of the piece with 4 or 5 musicians playing together in the recording studio in the different rooms. And then you might see somebody else, the camera cut to somebody else who appears to be in the same room because we maxed out the number of ISO booths that we have available for that project. So then some parts were recorded after the initial recording and edited into the piece. And some of our students couldn't participate in person, and we had to kind of design a project that could roll with that and that could still maximize the amount of interaction and communication and musical conversation that we would have in the band. And I think we succeeded at that, and it allowed us to record more interactive music than we've been able to do all semester, and it's just been a huge joy.
Well, I would just like to say that Johannes, when we discussed the idea of doing a concert, immediately said, Paula, why don't I ask the students if they would like to compose some music in conjunction with these images that you have at Tandem Press? And so he then asked me to bring Derrick Adams to his class virtually and talk to the students and talk about his work. And then out of that, 2 of the students have composed 2 pieces of music directly emanating from 2 of the prints. I think Johannes really pushed the whole magic of what could be done in isolation on the one hand, but bringing people together in a completely different way than they ever had, and making it an amazing program tonight.
Indeed. Thank you both. Professor of Jazz Studies, Johannes Wallman, Director of Tandem Press, Paula Panchenko. My two friends, you are creating art that is truly making our quality of life better, and especially during a difficult time of pandemic. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bud. Thanks, Paula.
name is Sona Pastel Danishkar. I'm one of the curators at Tandem Press. Thank you all for being with us here tonight for this special event. I'd like to take a minute to speak with you a bit about the artwork that inspired the piece you just heard, Boy on Swan Float by Derrick Adams. Boy on Swan Float is one image in a series of works by Brooklyn-based artist Derrick Adams. Completed between 2016 and 2019 and collectively known as his Floaters series, the works are immediately recognizable by their deep blue backgrounds and depictions of Black women, children, and men lounging on inflatable pool floats. The bright and colorful works are full of the playful whimsy of a day spent at the pool and are more or less a commentary on what Adams has referred to as both the joy of the present and Black radical joy. Although they are celebrations of times set aside for rest and relaxation, they are also not moments typically seen in popular culture. In this series, Adams proposes that engaging in leisure as a form of relaxation and reflection can be a political act when embraced by members of Black or working-class communities. The complex image of Boy on Swan Float was masterfully printed from 68 different puzzle-cut woodblock pieces. Each woodblock was inked up individually by hand and placed within a larger block that held the inked pieces perfectly in place while it went through a press, offsetting the ink from the blocks onto the paper. The image was built up this way through 6 runs or layers. After the woodblock printing was complete, 7 layers of screen print were added for the markings on the float and the boy's toenails, nostrils, eye, hair, and pupil. Lastly, the dot pattern of the green bathing suit was screen printed on book cloth, cut to shape, and collaged to the background. In these photos, we see Tandem Press master printer Joe Fry preparing and printing the blue background woodcut layer of Boy on Swan Float, followed by photos of the boy's toenails being screen printed later in the editioning process. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about how this incredible artwork was created. Thanks again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the program.
Hello, my name is Mishka Lewis and I'm one of the Tandem Press curators. Thank you for joining us today for this special jazz program in celebration of Derrick Adams' incredible artwork. To keep the party going, I'm happy to take a moment now to briefly speak to you about one of Derrick Adams' bodies of work, the We Came to Party and Plan series. Derrick Adams developed this body of work during a summer residency at the Robert Rauschenberg Foundation in 2019. This series, titled We Came to Party and Plan, was exhibited, as shown here, in 2020 at the Hudson River Museum. As you can see, the series consists of dozens of portraits of Black guests at a party. Derrick Adams decided to create 2 guests from this party as prints with us here at Tandem Press. The series is both joyful and powerful in its concept. Like in his Floater series, Adams has chosen to explore a subject that is not usually depicted in popular culture. It is particularly striking, considering that for many years it was illegal for Black people to congregate aside from religious services or special events like weddings and funerals. In We Came to Party and Plan, Adams proposes that a party can be a place for more than just celebrating. It can also be a great environment through which to have meaningful discussions that foster ideas and activism. These prints were created with multiple printmaking methods, including screen print, relief printing, and collage. The backgrounds and figures in both images were screen printed onto paper. Here are a few photos taken during the printing process of Party Guest 2 to show how our master printer Patrick Smichek built up the image through many layers of colors. As you can see, it takes a lot of planning and careful note-taking to produce a print like this. The party hats for each edition were relief printed onto a thicker paper, which was then cut out and collaged on top of the background. Here's a quick couple of photos to show how the party hats were printed. The male figure's shirt and the female figure's dress pieces were also collaged. Those elements were created by screen printing the fabric patterns onto book cloth, which was carefully cut to form before being adhered to the background. I just love the way Derrick created these 2 party guests to face each other to build up the energy of their interaction, as if they were truly at a party, fostering some great ideas.
So there's 100 of these little pieces that make up the print. I don't know, Seth, if you want to start over here and go in order. Talk about this was the first run, just this background, and then this, and they all look very weird. I mean, this looks sort of slightly clown face-ish, and it does while you're printing as well. And then it starts to build, and that's the third block, fourth block, fifth block, and that's the final block, all of which weirdly adds up to that.
So that would be the first run. Then you get the second run. Then you get the third run. Then you get the fourth run, the fifth run, and then the last run. So here at the top, this one has 2 runs. 2 or 3, yeah, 3 runs on this one. And then this one has 4. This one has 5.
It's about to have 6.
And then, yeah, the 6th run will get printed on it. And so you can really see, like, this idea of puzzle block will probably make a little bit more sense right now. So you can see that Joe has all of these colors out, and they're each for separate blocks that he's inking up for the run that he's going to do.
I'll just ink a few of them. Some of them we started, just so y'all didn't have to sit here and watch all of them get inked up. This is a particularly tiny one. And then we go back in the puzzle block.
everything would be inked up. You would print the run, then you would take all the blocks out, re-ink them up, put them back in, and then print again. So these holes will go on the pins, and that's how you lay the paper down onto the block each time and make sure that it's in register. So now that he's got it on the pins, he'll just slowly lay it down.
And we're going to put it in the press, and it's going to get loud for a little while.
So now that contact is allowing the transfer of ink to the paper from the blocks. So there are two collage elements for it. One is the shirt, which is printed on a book linen to give it a little bit of texture. And it's printed by silkscreen. And then there's a party hat that will go on, which is printed relief. And I'm going to cut the hat now. This is the party hat before it gets cut. And you'll notice that there's crop marks on here. And that is so that our digital plotter can register where to cut this party hat out. And it starts to read the crop marks. And then it's ready to go. So then we'll position it where it needs to go. Use a tacking iron to put it in place. And then we have a large dry mount press that we would put it in, and that would heat set it to the print.